Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to call this meeting of the City Council to order on September 10th. The time is now 7:30. Would everybody please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the clerk please call the roll?
Cannon.
Here.
Bud Matts.
Present.
O'Brien.
Here.
Veneziano. Here. Bessesi.
Here.
Diastis.
Here.
Sonoyka. Here.
With 7 present and 0 absent, there is a quorum this evening. Therefore, members of the audience are reminded that these proceedings are being videotaped for current and future broadcast over the city's cable television channel. First order of business tonight will be to approve the minutes from the August 20th Committee of the Whole meeting. Is there such a motion to approve these meeting minutes?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Sonoyka. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alderman O'Brien. Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions to these minutes? Seeing none, the question is, shall these minutes be approved? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Sounds like the ayes have it, so these minutes are approved. The next set of minutes are from the August 27th, 2019 City Council meeting. Is there a motion to approve these minutes?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Sonoyka. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alderman O'Brien. Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions to these meeting minutes? Seeing none, the question is, shall these minutes be approved? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. It is unanimous. At this point, we do have a crowded room this evening, and I welcome all of that. But at this time, I would like to take a quick break and have a motion to deviate from tonight's agenda. Is there a motion for deviation?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Bud Matts and Alderman Cannon for the second. Is there any discussion on this deviation? Seeing none, we will now deviate from the agenda. And if I could, Chief, have you come on up, and the microphone is by you.
That's me? Nope. Right, hear me?
No.
Nope. Oh, there we go. There was a delay. Now, you gotta be careful about giving me a microphone. What we have here today is police department for several years have been working on accreditation. It's been a goal we've had for our agency for quite some time. And what accreditation means is there's set standards, policies, and procedures that are in place. The Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police says that a progressive police department should have these policies and procedures in place, and it was about a 2-year process to ensure that we comply. Not only that we have those policies and procedures in place, but also that we follow them. And part of that process was there was 2 individuals from across the state that came over to the Rolling Meadows Police Department, spent several days here, and did an assessment of our agency, interviewed the officers, did ride-alongs, talked to the public, and after that time frame, they make a recommendation to the Illinois Associations of Chiefs of Police. And right now, today, right to my right, is Chief Bill Kushner from the Des Plaines Police Department, also Vice President of Illinois Associations of Chiefs of Police, who has a presentation for our agency.
Can you hear me? Yeah. I hate microphones. Chief, on behalf of the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police and professional law enforcement throughout the state of Illinois, I'm proud to present to you your Tier 1 accreditation, your I-League accreditation for the Rolling Meadows Police Department.
Thank you very much.
Me blush. Can I get the officers here too? Because obviously the officers are a huge part of accreditation. They're obviously a dedicated group of men and women, true professionals, who provide the highest level of police service for the city. So I'd like to get a picture of them in here too, because it really is a team process. I also want to give a special thanks to Sergeant Manfredi, who's the accreditation manager. He made sure all the files were in order and so forth. So a huge thank you to Sergeant Manfredi.
The rookie can get in there.
Now you can see again.
Everybody say cheese.
Shake hands. There we go.
Thank you.
Chief, I just want to say congratulations to you and your staff on the force. That's no small feat. I did not want to be in the way, neither did anyone on the council here. We figure those efforts are earned all on your own. So again, congratulations. At this time, I'd like to ask for a motion to return to the original agenda. Is there such a motion?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Sunoika. Is there a second for that motion? Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So moving on to the mayor's report, we had last weekend a Labor Day parking lot party, which was greatly attended by many residents, and it was a good time. Weather was good, food was good, entertainment was great. This coming Friday, we have one of our last Friday's rock with duck races, and I've been informed that I'm honored to do the duck release, so I'm pretty excited about that, letting ducks go. This morning, I got to participate with a delegation of about 20 or so individuals over here from China in conjunction with the 21st Century Institute, Manager Krumstock, and, oh goodness, Martha Corner, Miss Corner and I were giving some information as to how things run in the city, and then they received a brief tour of our facilities, our fire department, our police department, and then they headed over to Harper College to see how our community college functions. This was, again, the third one that I've been part of, and I think we've had about 5 or 6, but each time they get larger and larger, so that's a good thing, but it's quite exhaustive, I know, for staff, so I appreciate what you do, taking the time out of everyone's day for that. And then I got to have some nice lunch with the seniors, and I enjoyed that with Alderman Veneziano. There was a great turnout there as well. The food was good, and I applaud everybody who volunteered to help serve all of our seniors. With that, are there any ward reports this evening?
I have
Alderman
one.
Veneziano.
So I just wanted to give a shout out to Public Works. They had a lot of resident interaction this week with some of our residents, and they wanted me to forward that they really appreciated all the hard work that you guys gave them this week.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there aren't any other ward reports, then we'll move on to the next session, which is opening the floor to the public for 20 minutes. And there is a crowded audience and a full sign-in sheet. There are 10 names on this list, and we do allot 20 minutes for a public forum. So if everybody could be cognizant of your time and neighborly and allow 2 minutes per individual, that way we don't cut off any others toward the end. Prior to opening the floor and calling the first name, I just want to read that couple rules and procedures to the public, and that's the fact that no member of the City Council responds does not mean that the City Council or any member thereof agrees or disagrees with a comment that's been made. Any person who seeks to address the City Council at this time for public comments shall be permitted to speak only upon recognition of the presiding officer, and such person shall adhere to the following provisions. Each person addressing the City Council shall state their name. Each person shall be granted no more than 2 minutes at this time for the allotted 20 minutes in order to address the City Council. Questions and/or commentary shall be limited to city business. Comments supporting or opposing a nominated person's candidacy for elective office of the city shall be out of order. Discussion shall take place in a professional manner which displays mutual respect. Profanity shall not be used or tolerated in any form or manner. And with that, I'd like to move on to the first name on the sign-in sheet, which is Annie. Annie, if you could state your name and the street that you live on. No number.
Hi everyone, my name is Annie. I work here in Rolling Meadows for Remax at Home. Again, I'm Annie Eliana Gonzalez. I am a realtor with Remax at Home here in Rolling Meadows. I do work throughout the whole Chicagoland area. I would like to address some concerns that were brought up to me regarding backyard chickens and property values. Since a lot of people are here to speak tonight, I will keep it brief and to the point. With that, I wanted to say that chickens do not affect property values directly. Some factors that do affect property values are, first of all, locations or where your home is located, other comps similar to your home, its size and usable space, any updates and upgrades, your local market, the age and condition of your home, and many other things. However, chickens, like many other pets, do not affect property values. Other neighborhoods with average selling prices of over $500,000, such as Deerfield or Highland Park, they allow backyard chickens, and their home values have not decreased because of that. My tip to anyone who's thinking of selling and have a pet that is any pet, I would advise, to clean their home very well, and as well as after their pet, no matter if it is a cat, a dog, or chickens. With that, I want to say just be a good neighbor and seller, and clean your coop and yard regularly, and keep it odor-free, free of any offensive odors. And with that, I'll leave it up to the next speaker.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next one is Janet.
Thank you. My name is Janice Sonoika, and I live over on Jody Court here in Rolling Meadows. I'd like to preface what I have to say by saying that my views are not reflective of Alderman Sonoika. She does a pretty good job of saying those herself. Thank you. So anyway, my name is Janet. I'm a practicing research scientist with multiple degrees in biomedical engineering from the University of Illinois and Northwestern. And more importantly for today, I'm a lifelong resident of Rolling Meadows. As all these things, it's really important to me that I live in a place that applies data, critical thinking, and empathy when making decisions, especially now as I'm trying to figure out where I want to start my own family over the next couple of years. That being said, it has been extremely frustrating to watch the council and the citizens agonize over this chicken ordinance. Overall, I love that we're using citizen input to refine the ordinance. It's really exciting to me as I work in medical science to hear everyday citizens talk about the CDC. And what I've seen come from this is a comprehensive, inclusive, and data-driven plan to keep Rolling Meadows a modern and sustainable city. I fully support the chicken initiative and this ordinance. I would, however, like to address the citizens and the council members that are coming forward and misconstruing data and research to fit their opinions and feelings. Just because the CDC has data on backyard chickens doesn't mean that chickens are a more dangerous animal. The CDC has data on all diseases that they can track. That's their job. Overall, the data does not support the claims that chickens are any more dangerous or disruptive than your average dog or cat, which we've gone over before, so I won't belabor the point. But I would like to emphasize the fact that critical thinking and context are extremely important when looking at any type of data. So basically, I would just like to ask our fellow citizens to think critically about where their apprehensions are coming from, and are they just looking at data that supports their view, or are they looking at how studies are conducted and are they valid? And I would also like to ask our city representatives to remember that they are elected officials that we trust to make rational choices to enrich our city, especially when we as citizens are speaking out in fear or anger. Read the data, look at the greater context, and support backyard chickens. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next one is Joe E.
Yep. Hi, Joe Eberwein. I don't mind giving my name. I've lived here for 40 years. My wife is a lifetime member of Rolling Meadows. Our children, our grown adult children, also live here, and my granddaughters. And so I had a whole speech and everything planned, but I'm just going to speak from the heart. Why do I want chickens? I want chickens for my granddaughters. I want chickens to become more sustainable. I want my granddaughters to learn where eggs come from, that they don't come from a machine in Jewel. That's what they thought, they came from a machine. I mean, they really didn't know. I've been in the food service industry for 42 years. I was a cook and a chef. I can tell you, and it's already been covered, but I was going to cover some of the things about some of the obstacles other people were putting up. You have more of a chance of catching salmonella at one of our local restaurants than you do from a backyard chicken. That's a fact. I was a cook and a chef for 22 years, Serve Safe for 10. Serve Safe is a certification program that you have to be in a restaurant to run a kitchen. There's nothing that says we're going to catch salmonella from the chickens that we're having here, okay? It's just a fact. I would beg all you guys, just like, behind some heavy hitters who kind of covered everything that I wanted to cover. But being here, raising my family here, and now their family's being raised here. They're going to the same schools my wife went to. I grew up in Hoffman Estates. It's really important to me to show them sustainability and to show them what can be done in someone's property. Okay, I guess that's it. I'm just asking for a fair shot here, and I hope that we all make the right decision. Okay.
Thank you. Next is Steve Hollish, I think. Yes, Mr. Hollish.
Steve Hollish, 4811 Deepwood. I guess I'm going to be the first one to go against the chickens, as much as I'm going to get stoned from the back of the room. But I think if you look at this, there's really nothing wrong with chickens if you have enough room. Basically, Rolling Meadows is a very established community, very small lots. You've all deliberated on how big a piece of property has to be in order to have chickens. You increased it a little bit. I personally think that 8,000 square feet a minimum is too small, but if you go any larger, you're going to eliminate most of the lots in Rolling Meadows. So based on that and the way it's written, 10 feet is too small. You're not really treating the neighbors in a neighborly fashion. You're not putting in any kind of ordinance saying you have to have agreement for your neighbors before you go ahead and put a chicken coop in. And I think that's the important thing. I've said many times that you should contact your neighbors, and if your neighbors all agree that they don't have a problem with the chickens, then fine, you can do it. Personally, I don't want chickens next to me, and I've heard a lot of people say that it's going to affect real estate money and everything else, and I don't believe that, but I guarantee you if I put my house up for sale and there's a chicken coop next to me, people aren't going to want to buy my house. That's just a fact of life. People don't like it. So again, based on the density of Rolling Meadows and the established community, chickens aren't really a good fit. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Frank Liquori.
Hello, everybody. My name is Frank Liquori. I live off of Wren Lane behind the courthouse. I'm not going to come up here and talk about salmonella or predators or anything like that. I've been to every one of these meetings and heard all the different statistics. I only want to tell you my own personal story. I have not lived in Rolling Meadows long. I've only been here since October. The reason for that is because I'm a soldier in the active duty Army. I moved to Illinois because I was told to. So it's pretty fair. But prior to living here, I lived in Kentucky. And Kentucky is completely different than Illinois, and I understand that. I'm originally from Streamwood, Illinois, which is right down the road. During my time in Kentucky, I did own chickens. I owned 6 of them, to include roosters. And I don't like roosters, so I'm cool with that ordinance part. But I have a little stepdaughter and a fiance and a kid on the way. And every single day they would go out and feed the chickens. They would, my little 6-year-old would go and she'd pull the eggs out. And I would see the joy from her face. What killed me the most is when I was moving back to my home state, I realized I'd have to get rid of my chickens because they weren't allowed here. So I moved back, gave away my chickens to some good friends of mine in Kentucky, and then I found this group that was going to allow chickens back, and the excitement flew into my child's face and my fiance's face that we might have chickens again. With the ordinance the way that it stands, with all these rules and regulations, if you pass this ordinance, I personally probably will not have chickens because of how many different restrictions that has been applied to it. If you pass it, I'm going to ask you to pass it to hopefully review it and make it easier for the local citizen to have chickens. Because from personal experience, they're my pets. They were my pets. They were all given names, no matter how many times I told my wife not to name them. But they were all pets to me. So if you pass this ordinance, I'm going to ask you to pass it to allow the opportunity for the future ordinance to be changed so all residents can enjoy chickens in Rolling Meadows. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Next on the list is Sadhana Krishnamurthy.
So my name's Sadhana Krishnamurthy, and I live off of Borough Court. I'm a young professional, and I have a job that makes me commute out to Chicago, but I've opted to live in Rolling Meadows, and one of the reasons is because I want to live in a city that cares about environmental sustainability. The message of sustainability is a core principle among many of my peers, and it rings loudly among my generation. And Rolling Meadows has done a wonderful job in its efforts towards environmental sustainability, such as our beautiful community garden or the tireless effort that we put into our bee population. I strongly feel that allowing our citizens the right to own chickens is the next responsible step in paving Rolling Meadows into a sustainable city. I understand that having chickens seems a bit rural, but in this day and age, allowing backyard chickens shows a commitment to modernity and progress. For those who seem highly concerned about someone else's right to own backyard chickens, I pose this. I know it's been said before, but my neighbors have dogs, and members of my family aren't comfortable with dogs. Either they're allergic or they're afraid. But my mild discomfort does not take away my neighbor's right to own a cute or friendly Labrador, and it shouldn't. However, Rolling Meadows doesn't enforce extremely strict regulations on pet owners. They aren't required to build fences, so my neighbor's dog is free to roam, sometimes in my own backyard. There aren't regulations on yard size, even if you have a yard. My neighbor didn't have to go through a specific channel to purchase their dog. They could get him from anywhere. And we allow this lack of regulation because the right to own a pet is something that we as a community have lived with for decades. It's comfortable. It's tradition. Conversely, to own a backyard chicken, there are many regulations where the city is heavily involved. The coop must be to a certain standard with specific yardage. There can only be no more than 6 chickens, no roosters, and only 25 of our citizens can have the privilege of it. So what I'm trying to say here is that we disagree with some of these, or these policies are put in place because this is new, and I understand that something new might be a little scary and it's helpful to regulate new. However, I think it's detrimental to outright deny and vilify something that is new because it's different, especially when that difference allows us to be more progressive and sustainable. My final sentiment is this: I love living in my city, and I want to see the city grow into a more contemporary climate, not just for myself, but for my siblings and for your kids as well, and for other young professionals who are looking to live in a city that cares about their well-beings and their rights as citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next one on the list, it looks like it's Ann P. Ann.
Hi, Ann Prushnik on Falcon Court.
Thank you.
I just want to say I support chickens 100%. I have 2 grandchildren, which I'd love to, have them learn how to take care of chickens. I'm one of those crazy people that believe in feeding my family and everything good. We've been here since 1965 in the same house. I bought the house after my mom moved away. I make my own bread. We preserve, we can fruits, vegetables, and things like that. It'd be great. I have a vegetarian daughter who's grown now, who we've wanted to do chickens for 15 years now. It'd be great because just because you see something on a label saying it's cage-free and organic, it doesn't really mean it is. They're just able to, do that. And I just think we should have the chance to do that. And I agree with a lot of other people. You don't have to be regulated to have a dog. I have dogs. We do take care of our dogs. They're pets. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Megan Golick.
My name is Megan Gavlik. I live on Raven Lane in the 4th Ward, and I strongly support the allowance of backyard chickens. Several communities similar to Rolling Meadows allow residents to own hens. 6 of these towns were thoroughly researched by Alderman Sonoyka at the beginning of this process, and I feel that that research is enough to hold its own merit against any fears of the unknown that residents may have. Tonight, I believe that the City Council should amend the proposed ordinance to remove the annual veterinary requirement. We do not require residents to bring their cats or dogs to a doctor, so why would we burden residents with taking their healthy bird to a vet? Unlike cats, dogs, and humans, chickens do not require annual vaccinations. Based on the surrounding passion of this topic, I truly believe that residents who want to own chickens, that we can trust them, that they will seek veterinary care when needed without the mandate of a city ordinance. I also believe that the City Council should seek to clarify and adjust Section 14-136, letter A, number 3, which currently states hens are not to be mandated for financial gain or for any business purpose. This statement and Alderman Diasis's comments at the Committee of the Whole meeting on August 27th seem to suggest that families shouldn't be allowed to sell the eggs that their hens produce. Our beekeeping ordinance does not include such a restriction. It does not make sense to me why the council would want to prohibit the entrepreneurial spirit of any resident, especially in this case when there already are state regulations in place to guide the proper procedure for selling fresh eggs. I truly believe that allowing backyard chickens will bring joy and a new understanding of sustainability to our residents. A study done by DePaul University that followed up with 21 cities who passed backyard chicken ordinances found that all cities felt that passing their ordinance had either a positive or neutral effect on their city. Not a single one of those 21 cities studied have found the ordinance to be a negative impact to their community. Additionally, 55% of cities reported that they have detected 0 violations of their ordinance. I hope the city will take into consideration my comments and the passion of residents to bring backyard chickens to their homes in voting tonight.
Thank you. Next on the list is Steve Rabarczyk.
Hello, Mr. Mayor. My name is Steve Rabarczyk. I live on Owl Drive, Rolling Meadows. I'm here to voice my opinion against the chickens for reasons I'm sure that you've already heard. However, if it does by chance get passed, the language in here is a little vague. I would like to know if my neighbor has chickens and they don't clean the coop, how many times do I have to complain before it's taken away? There's nothing. It says call. Somebody would have to call Public Works. Public Works would have to come out, take a look, make sure that it is a dirty coop, and then talk it over with the city manager. I think that there should be something in here where 3 strikes and you're out. I mean, I don't think it should be that I call and complain once, and the guy who just spent $1,500 to have his coop put in and get chickens now has to have his coop removed and the chicken's gone. That doesn't make good neighbors. So I would ask you to look this over and come up with a solution to problems that could happen when neighbors are complaining. Thank you.
Thank you. And the final name on the list, at least on page 1, yes, final name, Bob Sanford.
Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Bob Sanford. My wife and I have lived here for 25 years. We've raised our 4 daughters here. We live on Hawk Lane. My one daughter just bought a house right over on Owl. I had a speech I wanted to give, but I'm going to make it short. So, I grew up. My family came up from Alabama. We had the experience of raising farm animals, and I was able to experience that. My wife's family's from Mississippi, same experience, and we just want to be able to give that to our grandkids. I have 6 of them, and I want to be able to give them the ability to see where an egg really comes from, and to experience. We garden too. I mean, we've gardened the whole time we've been here, and we have a pretty big garden in our backyard. The gardening's not cheap the way we do it, and we would treat it the same way with the chickens, and chickens would be our pets. I mean, my wife's already got names for them. We don't even have them. So basically, that's I want to be able to do it to give my grandkids an experience and to learn and have knowledge. So thank you for hearing me. I'm for it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that now moves us on from opening the floor for public comment. This now brings us to the first item that's pending. It's Ordinance 19-40, amend Chapter 14 entitled Animals, Prohibit Feeding of Wild Animals, second reading. Is there a motion to adopt this ordinance? Thank you, Alderman Cannon. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Alderman Sonoyka. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, the question is, shall the ordinance be adopted? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Budmets.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Veneziano.
Yes.
Bessetti.
Yes.
Diastis.
Yes.
Sonoyka.
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
With 7 in favor and none opposed, this ordinance is adopted. Next, line item B, ordinance number 19-41, amend Chapter 102 entitled Taxation, imposing a municipal cannabis retailer's occupation tax. Is there a motion to consider this ordinance for first reading?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Or second reading, I'm sorry, typo here, and I read the script. Thank you, Alderman Diaz. Is there a second?
Second.
Alderman Veneziano, thank you. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, the question is, shall the ordinance be moved forward? Well, so now it's not moved forward for second reading. Shall the ordinance be adopted? Will the clerk please call the roll?
O'Brien.
Yes.
Veneziano.
Yes.
Bessesi.
Yes.
Diastis.
Yes.
Sunoika.
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
Budmett.
Yes.
With 7 in favor and none opposed, this ordinance is adopted. The next item on the list is the consent ordinances in for first reading. It consists of one item, item C. Is there a motion to consider this ordinance in for first reading?
So moved.
Thank you, Alderman Sunoika.
Just for clarification, if there's going to be discussion on this
Mhm.
item, we should remove it from the consent agenda.
So we have to remove it from the consent agenda even if there's only one? Okay. So then we'll say that this item is in for first reading. Would somebody wish to pull an item from the consent ordinance?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Thank you for the second. Ordinance number 19-00 is to amend Chapter 14 to allow for regulate hens and outdoor hen shelters on residential lots in the city of Rolling Meadows. Alderman Sunoika, you pulled this item. Is there any discussion?
Yes, I would like to begin first by stating that Marty Scott of Western Springs was unable to be here today, but had expressed that he had wanted to speak publicly from a municipal standpoint of how the chicken program in Western Springs was going. I am not going to read this in its entirety. I am going to simply state for the record some aspects of this for discussion going forward, and I will then submit this for the record after the council meeting today. And so Mr. Scott states that the experience has been positive since those who continue raise chickens as of today are very serious about the task. They became well educated from the beginning and there have been no serious complaints over the past 8 years. The 2 complaints I can recall were unfounded. Noise from chickens, chickens drawing coyotes, etc. Unfounded. To that end, the chicken noise is quieter than AC units, dogs barking, traffic, and ambient noise. The chickens have not drawn coyotes or other predators to the area. The northern border of our community is a forest preserve that is hundreds of acres in size with lots of wildlife, including coyotes. A few residents who have received permits have stopped raising chickens, and that may happen when someone embarks on it without proper education. The general population of our community has accepted the chickens as well. Some even see it as the community becoming more open-minded and willing to consider modern trends. It will make our future conversations relating to beekeeping a little more commonplace. Overall, the experience has been positive with little to no impact on municipal services. With that said, after reviewing the draft ordinance when it was published last Friday, I would like this council to consider several components of the ordinance. First, the proposed requirement for vet receipts was discussed at the August Committee of the Whole meeting, and because chickens do not carry communicable diseases that are managed by vaccines, there was no public health reason to require annual vet visits. Furthermore, feedback from veterinarians suggested that birds should see a vet as needed, which may not be as frequent as once a year. I move to amend the ordinance regulating hens and outdoor hen shelters to remove the sentence that contained in paragraph C of section 14-161 that states proof of veterinary care of flock will be required for chicken license renewal, and the last phrase of paragraph G of section 14-162 that states along with the submission of veterinary receipts indicating proof of veterinary care of flock. I need a second.
Second.
Okay. Ms. Wolf, would you like to clarify real quick?
Just so the council has the correct ordinance in front of them. Right before the meeting, I passed out a packet that indicated a redlined version of the ordinance that the council is considering right now, and it just contained administrative corrections, no substantive changes based on the council's input at the Committee of the Whole meeting have been made. But the packet that I passed out is the ordinance that will be being considered by the council tonight. So the motion to amend addresses that corrected language.
For clarification, is that the...
Alderman Sunoika.
For clarification then, the motion that I had made and that was seconded by Alderman O'Brien, with this new version, does that still hold? Can we still continue with the motion?
Yes.
Okay.
But since we haven't, we're making a motion to amend before we've actually made a motion to approve.
No.
There's been a motion and a second to, with respect to the ordinance.
Correct.
And now this was a motion and a second to amend.
Okay, I must have missed that
Okay.
part then.
And Alderman Diastis, you have a question.
Well, I have 2 packets on animals, I have nothing on chickens. So if we're talking about chickens, I don't have whatever was handed out.
That is with respect to hens, to allow that packet that you have.
This one's right here.
Oh. So,
And those are not substantive changes, they're just administrative, like verbiage changes, but it doesn't change any of the specifics, like size restrictions or limitations or quantity of hens that a homeowner can purchase. It doesn't change anything like that. It's just purely verbiage in terms of diction.
So this ordinance that you have in front of you now is the ordinance that you'll be voting on and amending.
okay.
So we're currently in discussion on the motion to amend.
What?
Alderman
To take out the
Sonoyka's
veterinarian
Okay,
request.
I move to amend the ordinance regulating hens and outdoor hen shelters, which is the ordinance that you have in front of you. There are 2 copies. One of the copies is redlined, so you can see where the changes were made. Do you see that? And then the other one is the exact same thing, but without the red line. It's just formatted so that the redlining is removed for our city attorney.
And the motion to amend currently removes the language regarding the requirement for veterinary care. So
correct.
That language is contained in section 14161, paragraph C. And section 14162, paragraph G.
G.
It's not redlined in here, though.
Correct. Correct.
I've got the red line. What you're saying is not in here, though.
The red line document is just for your, so you could see
Understanding.
what I changed prior to coming in here today. But that's not being changed by any of the amendments. So if you want to look at the clean doc, I just wanted you all to be able to see that no substantive changes were made as I've swapped out one ordinance, the ordinance from the packet. So the changes that are now being discussed are substantive issues that were discussed at the Committee of the Whole that there was not a consensus on by this council. So there's a motion to amend it to address that issue regarding the veterinary care.
Which was motioned by Alderman Sonoyka and seconded by Alderman O'Brien. Which would now leave us up for a vote on that if there isn't any further discussion by council.
Further
Alderman
discussion
Veneziano, yes, further discussion on the amendment.
on just the amendment?
Correct, that's where we're at.
Okay, no.
Okay. So, Alderman
Mayor Gallo,
O'Brien.
just to confirm, this current amendment, because I have another question that would be a potential amendment, but we're just focusing discussion
Correct.
now on this one.
This one amendment is what we put a first and a second
Thank you.
behind. And if there isn't any discussion on this, then I will have the clerk call roll.
Okay, one moment, please.
Sure.
So, the one that I'm doing here. So section
Alderman
14.
Sonoyka, would you please reread the amendment that we're voting on?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, if everyone can take your packet and look for section 14161. It's on page 1. And then we're going to look at paragraph C, so we're now going to page 2, and you see how there's a B and a C. That C is the renewal license. And the renewal license says renewal chicken license will be required each year after, okay? And then applicants must submit a renewal chicken license application, and proof of veterinary care of flock will be required for chicken license renewal. My motion is to remove proof of veterinary care of flock will be required for chicken license renewal. And the other part of this motion is to look at section 14-162, which is also on page 2, but we're going to turn the page to page 3 and look at G. Section G also says in the last sentence, along with the submission of veterinary receipts indicating proof of veterinary care of flock. My motion is to strike both of those sentences from this ordinance and remove the requirement for veterinary care, given the expert witness testimony that we have from veterinarians saying that this is unnecessary for public health reasons and for the care of the bird.
Thank you. So with that and the knowledge of the rereading of that, is there further discussion before we put that to a vote? Seeing no further discussion on that, will the clerk please call roll?
Veneziano.
Yes.
Bessesi.
Yes.
Diastis.
Yes.
Sunoika.
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
Bud Matts.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
With 7 in favor and unopposed, we do move forward with the amendment. So, we would now repeat the entire ordinance, which is the 19-00, amend Chapter 14 to allow for and regulate hens and outdoor hen shelters on residential lots in the city of Rolling Meadows, including the amendments Alderman Sonoyka just put forth and was voted on. Is there a motion to move this forward?
To poll.
Or to poll?
Yes,
I'm
motion to
sorry. Well, it's already been polled. It doesn't.
Oh, to
Just any further discussion.
Is there further discussion on this matter now? Alderman Diastis.
Yes, I've got 3 amendments that I'd like to make to this. And I'd like to know, and have them voted individually, so one at a time, or?
Yes.
Okay. My first motion to amend is section 14-161, section A, to change from 25 to 10, as was suggested and discussed at the council meeting. It's on page 1.
Mm-hmm. Is there a second for Alderman Diastis's requested amendment? No second? Or Alderman?
Okay, you're looking at me.
Oh, I'm just looking down the row. If you want to make a second,
That's fine,
great.
that's
Okay.
fine, yeah.
Is there any discussion on that? Alderman Diastis?
Well, we talked about it at the committee of the whole meeting, so I figured that it was somehow overlooked. We talked about reducing it to 10, so I'm just putting that out there.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Sure. Thank you, Alderman Diastis, for bringing that up. I will be voting to keep the 25.
If there's no further discussion, I'll ask that the clerk please call the roll on this amendment.
Bessesi.
No.
Diastis.
Yes.
Sunoika.
No.
Cannon.
Yes.
Bud Matts.
No.
O'Brien.
No.
Veneziano.
No.
With 5 opposed and 2 for it, that fails. Alderman Diastis.
Thank you. My second amendment is that, let's see, section 14-163, on page 4. Under B, number 1, it talked about the amount of square feet required for a run, but we neglected to say what the size of the coop shall be. So I would add, a coop shall have a minimum of 6 square feet per hen housed, just so that it's defined, and when the city goes out to inspect, they know if there's however many number of hens, there should be an appropriate square footage in terms of the size of the coop. So it's, a coop shall have a minimum of 6 square feet per hen housed, to add to that section 1.
Wait a second. It's almost as if it's worded poorly to start
Right,
with, like it
that's-
should have already been in there.
Right, that's all I'm trying to do is correct it so that it's stated in there. Because right now, it reads to me as if it's just a run and not the coop that needs a specific square footage.
This language was the language in the proposed ordinance that was brought before the committee of the whole. So it was kept that way for this council to consider.
So how would you?
I would just add a sentence, a coop shall have a minimum of 6 square feet per hen housed.
So change run area to coop.
Well,
No, just add a sentence.
Excuse me, gentlemen, I would first need to get a second on the motion for the amendment.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Now, is there any discussion? Alderman Sonoyka.
Also, at the committee of the whole, we discussed that regulating the size of the coop is not what's at issue here. It's the coop is what houses the hens, and then the enclosure is where they can move around. So the purpose of this is to make sure that the hens have enough space to move around, and everything, including the coop and including the enclosure, cannot exceed 100 square feet. That is what is in here. So if you're proposing that it must be 6 feet for the hen house itself, so a 36 square foot hen house is what you are proposing.
Alderman Diastis.
I'm just proposing the coop shall have a minimum of 6 square feet per hen housed. So if you have 2 hens, it would be 12. If it's 6 hens, then yes, it would be 36. And that's what I read in documentation about doing coops, is that you need to have a certain amount of space. You can't put 6 hens in a coop that's 12 square feet. So this way, we have, it's documented specific.
Okay, so is there further discussion on the matter?
That's
Alderman
actually
O'Brien.
how I read this, because, and I'm clearly not an attorney, but the way I read it, in addition to the coop, a run area must also be a minimum of 6 square feet. So I took it meaning the coop as well as the run, to Mr. Diastis's point, both had to be a minimum of 6 square feet per hen. Just on the wording, on the context here, the way Mr. Diastis is clarifying it, that's how I also interpret it, because I read it, in addition to the coop, a run area must also be a minimum of 6 feet. So to me, that means coop and run area. I'm okay either way based on the residents' feedback I've received, but I was reading it the same way that Mr. Diastis does. So from a clarification point, I think we do have a valid concern here.
Thank you. Alderman Sonoyka.
So, all right, so we're looking at number 1. It says, in addition to the coop. So the coop is its own thing, right? And it says, a run area of a run, the chicken run itself, must be an area of a minimum of 6 square feet per hen. And then will require a maximum of 100 total square feet will be permitted for both the coop and the hen. So you get 100 square feet for your chickens, whether you have 1 or you have 6. You cannot have more than 100 square feet, which includes the coop. That square plot includes the coop. The size of the coop itself is irrelevant, because depending on what your chickens are, what they need, they might not need a lot of space. Maybe you have something that's only 5 by 5 or less, and all of your chickens can roost there at night. We can also probably bring up an individual from the audience, if we can open up the floor. I don't know if that's a motion, but we can open up the floor to someone who has an animal science degree or who has experience with chickens, and then clarify this point for us.
My interpretation of the language as written is that the run area is
Okay.
the 6 square feet per hen.
Okay.
Then
Alderman.
I would agree with Alderman Sonoyka that if there is someone here, like as she mentioned, with that expertise, I would like to know a little bit more about.
We will need a motion to open the floor and a second. However, can we open the floor in the middle of an impending vote?
You have a motion. We have a motion pending now. Pardon me?
We have to finish this current
Yes.
current vote.
Table the motion for 5 minutes and then.
Do you want to get creative with it? Sure. I mean, I'm here all night.
Do that.
Okay, so you made a motion to
I would
table
like to make a
this
motion
topic.
To table the amendment.
Table the amendment for a period of up to 5 minutes to
Open
get
the floor.
clarification on the
Seconded.
amount of space needed for a chicken.
Seconded.
Thank you. Is there any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Diastis.
Sure.
Sunoika.
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
Bud Matts.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Veneziano.
Yes.
Bessesi.
Yes.
With 7 in favor and none opposed, the council will now open up the floor for expert testimony on living space, run space, roost space.
I think that might be me.
You're up, sir. Welcome.
My name's Andrew Rucker. Like they said, I have a degree in animal science. Pertaining to just this, we're not going to talk about all the rest of the chicken stuff, but each chicken, they're different sizes. You can have a chicken that's only 6 inches tall. Okay, so if you're saying a 6-foot coop, to heat that or to keep that warmth in for those chickens, it would be way too big. Okay, so if you have 6 full-size hens, 5-pounders, a 6-foot coop, 6 square feet would be plenty. Okay, you want it small enough to keep them warm, because that warmth, they're going to huddle together, and especially with our winters, they're going to use their body heat to keep each other warm. Okay, so that's where we need to have at least 2 chickens came into the whole thing from the beginning. Like I was saying, you can get a chicken that stands 6 inches tall, you can get a chicken that stands 1.5 feet tall. Okay, so leaving that open for the chicken owner to make that decision to take care of their pet would best interest. The 6-foot run space is excellent. That'll give them plenty of room to move around per chicken. That's the run space, that's the outside area. But inside, I think you need to leave that open for the chicken owner to make that decision. It's just like, how big of a doghouse do you need for your dog, okay? Does that answer everybody?
This is the moment where if you have questions, we can ask questions before we close the floor.
Or just say, thank you for the clarification.
No problem. Thank you.
Motion to close the floor.
Thank you. Is there a second to Alderman Sunoika's motion? Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. So moving back on to the tabled motion.
We need a motion to remove the amendment from the table.
Motion.
No.
Well, did we?
It's up to me.
We haven't, it's up to him whether he removes it.
And we still want to discuss it, right? Like, so,
Well, it's been tabled, and so now you have to
Oh.
remove it from the table
Okay.
so that you can discuss it.
Make a motion to remove it from the table.
thank you, and thank you, Alderman
Second.
Veneziano, for the second, or Diastis. This brings this back to Alderman Diastis.
Yeah, well, I guess I still have a concern that,
Motion to remove.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
May I have a vote from the clerk? Would you please call roll so we can pull this off the table and be
Sun-
discussed?
Sunoika.
Yes.
Yes.
Bud Matts.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Veneziano.
Yes.
Bessesi.
Yes.
Diastis.
yes,
With 7 in favor and unopposed, this conversation is back to you, sir.
thank you. I guess my only concern is, without any type of standardization, I mean, how do we know if it's too big or too small? I mean, I'm gonna leave it out there, and if we wanna, I mean, I don't know what type, I don't know enough about hens to say anything. I was just making a motion to clarify what I was reading. So, obviously, that was not what was the intent of what was written, but I will still leave my motion out there, my amendment out there, and if people want to vote for it, they can. If not, they can't.
Okay. So if there isn't any further discussion on this, I'll take a quick vote on whether or not to make the amendment to dictate or predicate the square footage for roosting. Any discussion? Then would the clerk please call the roll?
Cannon.
No.
Bud Matts.
No.
O'Brien.
No.
Veneziano.
No.
Bessesi.
No.
Diastis.
I'm going to say yes.
Sunoika.
No.
With 1 in favor and 6 opposed, that motion fails. Do you have a third, correct?
Third one is the same page, item 3, to change the minimum 10 feet from the lot lines to 15 feet. I talked to several people. They expressed concern that 10 feet from the lot line could put could put this whole thing, 10 feet from their home or from the lot line. So I talked to them, I said, what about 15 feet? I think anything more than that is kind of infringing on people's backyard, so I'm just going to move it up to offer 15 feet instead of 10.
Is there a second for Alderman Diaz's motion? Alderman Cannon made the second.
So for clarification, we're talking about section 14163B3.
Correct.
Is there further discussion on Alderman Sonoyka?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The 10 feet lot line is consistent with pet rabbits, which is already in our ordinances, and it is also consistent with sheds and dog houses and other such structures. So making it larger would be inconsistent with our current ordinances. Because the enclosure and the coop are completely enclosed, there's no free-ranging hens outside of this enclosure. I feel that the 15 lot requirement is unnecessary, and I will be voting no on this amendment.
Thank you, Alderman Sonoyka. Is there further discussion from another alderman or woman?
Question.
Yes, sir.
How is this affected by easements on lot lines for public utilities? Could, in theory, chickens be on easements for public utilities?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Do we have a staff who could weigh in on easements? Is there anyone on staff that could weigh in on easement effect?
As long as the coop and run could be easily moved at no cost to the city, then it would not be an issue for, at least that I would be aware of.
And from my understanding, I believe these were mobile coops to a certain degree, semi-mobile. Does that answer your question, Alderman Budmats?
Sure, thank you.
To the best I can, thank you.
I'm sorry, Mayor.
Yes.
I would just say we do currently allow fences and other types of things in easements, and residents who apply for those simply have to fill an easement agreement out. So if that became a requirement of the coop, we could certainly do that as part of the permit process.
Fair enough. Thank you for the follow-up. Further discussion on this matter? The Alderman Diaz,
Yeah, I'm
second
trying-
bite at the apple
Thank
here.
you. I'm trying to look at the section in here that talks about the size of a coop and the height, and I think that's what differentiates it from a doghouse or a rabbit, whatever. I believe I read in here they can be as high as 8 feet tall, and I'm trying to find it right now. I can't
That
find
was
it.
in the same section that you were talking about before. Oh, I'm sorry.
And I think that's what makes a difference and why it should be set back further. The other homes for animals are much smaller. This could be 8 foot tall and it's 10 foot from the lot line. I don't want to sit on my patio at night and see an 8 foot coop with chickens.
Alderman Sonoyka, this is your second time on this conversation, so be cognizant of that.
Thank you for the reminder, Mr. Mayor. I would like to clarify that sheds can also be 8 feet tall. And we can have Public Works and Community Development comment on how large they've seen some sheds for other people as well.
My statement was going to be, I believe my neighbor's shed is rather tall, and they actually got a variance for his shed, so it's great.
Yeah, the input I could provide is I'm certain I've seen sheds over 8 feet tall, but I don't know the exact requirement and the height of sheds put up in the community. So.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Horn.
Is there further discussion on the height? Without further discussion, we will put this to a vote. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Budmats.
Yes.
O'Brien.
No.
Veneziano.
No.
Bessesi.
No.
Diastis.
Yes.
Sonoyka.
No.
Cannon.
Yes.
That's 4 opposed and 3 in favor, so the opposition takes the lead. And then, Alderman Sonoyka, I believe you have another amendment you would like to put forward? as
Yes.
well? If that concludes Alderman Diaz's amendments, okay, then Alderman Sonoyka.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So during council discussion and in previous council discussions and tonight, we deliberated on the square footage of the lot size that's required. However, after we determined uniform setback requirements in previous meetings and tonight, and established minimum and maximum coop and hen enclosure space requirements, the size of the actual residential lot is irrelevant to the care and keeping of birds and the sanity of their neighbors. So as an example, if a resident built a house on a 9,000 square foot lot and the house occupied all 9,000 square feet, then that resident would be ineligible for this program because there's no space left for even the minimum requirement for 2 chickens. Likewise, a smaller lot with an even smaller proportioned house would qualify if they have that minimum required square footage per hen. And all structures remain at least 10 feet off all lot lines. So specifically, if you could please look in the ordinance in front of you and look at section 14-163, and we can look at this together. This is on page 3. And then we are going to flip to page 4 so that we can look at paragraph B, as in boy, and number 2. Which states that a coop run or other structure used for housing hens shall be permitted only in conjunction with a single-family detached dwelling located on a lot containing no less than 8,400 square feet. Because the language here says a single-family detached dwelling, this does not include townhomes, it does not include apartments, and if you are part of a community with a homeowners association that prohibits fowl, you'll also be excluded from this program. So as a result of that and the requirement before that in paragraph B1, which we just discussed, we have plenty of requirements and guidance for the city to be able to say who can allot this space and who can participate in the program. So with all of that said, I move to amend the ordinance regulating hens and outdoor hen shelters to remove the phrase contained in section 14-163, paragraph B, number 2, that states, located on a lot containing no less than 8,400 square feet. And I need a second.
Second.
Thank you, Alderman O'Brien, for your second. Is there any discussion on this?
Okay. When we were discussing this, there's a lot of different square footages discussed, and I was under the impression that we were going to make it the same, whatever the minimum is for a R1, R2 residence, and just make it consistent with what our zoning code said.
Alderman Sonoyka, do you have feedback on that?
I do. Thank you, Alderman Bessetti. Yes, during discussions, we were unclear as to whether residential 1 or residential 2, which had been stated by our previous city attorney, Jim McCall. He had stated that R1 required a minimum of 10,000 square feet and R2 required a minimum of 8,000 square feet, 8,400 square feet. I'm getting a nod from the city manager that it's 8,400 square feet. That said, I have received feedback from residents who have homes that are 8,000 or 7,900 square feet, and although they have enough space per all of the requirements of the ordinance, they would be excluded from the program. And since the spirit of the discussions that we were having when we couldn't decide between 8,000, 8,400, or 9,000, our discussions had said, staff would please look into this, and whatever allows for single detached residential properties, please put that in. Since R1 and R2 are not consistent with the available amount of space due to that 7,900 example, my motion is to strike that language altogether since it is irrelevant for the space of the chickens and the sanity of their neighbors. Please let me know if you have further questions.
No, thank you.
Alderman Diastis, question?
Thank you. I think that I will be voting for the 8,400. I think having no minimum opens this up wide open. I'm not in favor of it, and I think we all talked about homes that are R1 and R2, and I will not be voting for this. I think it leaves too much unidentified. I think 8,400 was a fair compromise, and not everyone is going to be able to do this. And I think for the sake of the community, we need to have something in here. So I think it needs to have 8,400 as the minimum.
I hear what you're saying, and I think that that might be agreeable or acquiescent if there was some way in which those individuals who live in a single detached home that might fall under those square footage could receive a variance without friction, right? Like a frictionless variance. That way they could still participate should they want to and not be, you know.
Well, wouldn't it be as simple as saying it's allowable in R1 and R2 versus, and just the square footage would be whatever R1 and R2 are?
I believe that could solve it, but I think
actually giving it its precise.
Well, there may be some lots within the R1 and R2 district that are less than the required square footage, and they're legal
Mhm.
non-conforming lots.
Oh, okay, legal non-conforming.
Manager Krumstock.
Thank you, Mayor Gall. I don't believe that I'm saying this, but you are correct about variance, but here's the other thought. If you give the manager the approval to look at this and then make a decision, but then what you're doing is making the manager make a decision that falls back without anything that can curtail back later. So if you have a neighbor who have a dispute and it becomes arbitrary. But that's another way of doing it if you do not want to make it into a variance. It is done on another chicken ordinance that's out there, that if there is a dispute, the manager is the sole decision maker on it. I think I've been pretty clear that I'm trying to get out of the chicken business. I'm in the bee business for the 5 that we have. But at the same point in time, that might be another thought if you want to remove that. But that is correct. If you say R1 or R2, you're really stuck with those numbers, and people who are grandfathered because they're smaller or anything else become part of that issue. So again, there's 2 avenues that I'm mentioning. The variance is the easiest. The other one does become kind of arbitrary. I have no problem looking at it, but at the same point in time, it does open something else up later on.
I would.
Director Horn has something.
Okay, Director Horn and then Alderman Cannon.
I think I just might have some information that might help the conversation. The current code indicates the minimum lot size is 8,400 square feet. When the community was first established, there were lots that were developed that were smaller than 8,400. The code that we are presenting to the Plan Commission for consideration is to allow a 7,800 minimum square foot lot size to be permitted in an R2 district, which would make it no longer legal non-conforming, but conforming, which if the minimum lot size changed to 7,800 on this ordinance as opposed to 8,400, it would encapsulate all single-family residential homes.
Okay, and so when that change occurs to an ordinance, that ordinance would then come before the council to vote on and approve that change? And
Yes.
at that time, we would have to be cognizant that it could affect potential chicken owners? Is that
Yes,
what we're
yes, and
saying
we're
here?
trying to avoid the variance, having to bring
Sure.
variances for small items.
Correct.
But the ordinance that we're considering today is a regulation on the housing of hens. And if this ordinance says 8,400 square feet, it is required to have a coop or backyard chickens. That 8,400 square feet standard would still stand regardless of whether the minimum lot size in any zoning district is less than that.
Correct, unless we change this to say the R1, R2 in this language, then when the changes occur and the ordinance that allows for lesser sized lots to come into the fray, then they both coalesce.
Yeah, my concern would be if we left it at 8,400. These are relatively, supposed to be relatively inexpensive, fast, over-the-counter kind of permits. And if we miss and actually give a permit to a person who has the wrong lot size because they happen to be 300 square feet less, that would be my concern.
Alderman Cannon had his hand up first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm getting a little bit confused going through it. I apologize, but I just want to ask a question about clarification. So what we're asking for here is to get rid of the 8,400.
Altogether.
But it's still, it has to be a single-family detached dwelling, though?
Correct.
Right, okay. Thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome. Further follow-up on that, or no?
No, thank you.
Okay, Alderman O'Brien?
I was just going to say, as follow-up to that, do we just make it as simple as saying align with the current zoning or the proposed zone? Like, then anytime that changes, we don't have to come back and adjust an ordinance. We can just say, to Alderman Sunoika's point, is remove the 8,400 square feet. We talked about R1, R2, and just say, in alignment with current zoning for R1 and R2. Because then if that for someday goes to 6,500, then we're not back here. Or if it goes to 12,000, then we're not back here looking at another ordinance yet for a third time. It's just an idea that we could rewrite it to say align with, and then remember when it comes before us.
So, go ahead.
Yes, but then you're attaching a square footage requirement for a lot to have a chicken. So if that's what you want to do, you absolutely could do that.
Oh, one moment. Manager Crumstock.
And I just want to be clear, obviously what Public Works Director Rob Horn is talking about, that's in its infancy at this point in time, so you're sort of not making the joke, but I will. You're putting the chicken and the hen at the same point in time that you're saying down the line, the new R1 will be there. So, and again, not being the lawyer, you have in front of you a document. That's what we're trying to get past. And this is first reading. It's painful first reading. But that's what we're trying to get to. So just reiterating, all that we're trying to say is single family, how you get to single family. From revision number 1, we've always talked about 8,400. We're still at 8,400. So that's where we're getting to. And I can tell you, at least 2 individuals who've called me, they are under the 8,400, but that's all part of what we're discussing today.
Alderman Budmats.
So if we were to rewrite this to say, after the word detached dwelling, on a lot zoned R1 or R2, and we didn't address whether it was conforming or non-conforming, and we just said on an R1 or R2 zone lot, then would that not cover those houses that are currently zoned R2 that are 7,900 square feet?
Irrespective of
their current
Yeah.
size. If they're non-conforming, but they are zoned R2 presently, and they're a single-family dwelling, and they're 7,900 square feet, they would be included regardless of their lesser square feet. Is that correct?
That is a true statement. What you're saying is a true statement. Director Horn?
I would just caution the council, because I'm not 100% confident that in one of the other R districts, there aren't other single-family homes. We have our districts 1 through 5, 6, excuse me. So, thank you, Elizabeth. So, I can't confirm what available lots there are in all the different R districts. So,
Are we capable of voting on this and then adjusting it at the next meeting accordingly?
If somebody were, during the second reading, to make a motion to make an amendment after receiving maybe solid direction or feedback, then yes. Yes, we could adjust it then. Alderman Sunoika?
I am fine with proceeding with the vote for this amendment, and if it fails, we will just bring it back for the second reading. If this passes, then the first reading.
Okay. So if there's no further discussion on this, is there no further discussion? So I can have the clerk call the roll?
Sorry, with the caveat that staff will investigate and give us clear direction as to how we can phrase this paragraph B2 in section 14-163 that allows us to more eloquently state that this is a program exclusively for single-family detached dwellings. so that individuals that fall underneath the non-conforming residential lots can also participate in the program.
So now what you've just done is augmented what your amendment was, which was to strike it, and now do something else, which is have staff do some homework and provide information on this. So I would need a second on this, right? Because it's a whole new amendment request.
Just for clarification, I thought what Alderman Sonoyka was saying was that if this amendment failed, she would be fine considering this provision again at second reading if that ordinance goes to, if the full ordinance goes to second reading. But
Okay.
she would want staff input.
With the exception of
respect to
staff
that.
doing homework in between now and then to maybe come up with a solution, should this move forward.
Correct.
Okay, that's fine. Any further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
O'Brien.
Yes.
Veneziano.
Yes.
Bessesi.
It's on the amendment, right?
It's on the amendment.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
No.
Diastis.
No.
Sunoika.
Yes.
Cannon.
No.
Bud Matts.
No.
That's 3 in favor and 4 opposed, so it does not pass or move forward that way. Holy chicken. So where are we? It doesn't have the same effect, but where are we now with this?
Any further discussion on the main motion?
And the main motion now includes all of these amendments that we've just voted on.
The really one amendment that passed.
That was
Yes.
only one amendment that passed. Good Lord. Wow. Congratulations. This is chickens for backyards, folks. This is chickens for backyards. Is there further discussion on this? Alderman O'Brien.
This might just be a question for staff. In 114 or 14-161, there's reference to the renewal license at 21 days from when it was issued. From an efficiency standpoint for residents and staff, is it easier to say, and I am open to any date, but do we say September 1st, June 1st, so city staff doesn't have to keep track that Mr. Cannon got his on February 14th, I got mine on March 23rd, Mayor Gallo got his in September, that we can do it like the old village stickers or dog license where it's just September 1st, everybody renews. The first year, the first 12 months, there would be catch-up. Some residents might be paying twice within a 12-month period, but then we could at least have it one time a year for staff efficiency, and so residents don't have to remember, oh, I got that March 21st.
That would be convenient, and that's what we actually do with the B items for the 5 individuals who have been participating.
So I'm guessing I have to make a motion to
You
amend
do
something?
absolutely have to make that motion.
I'll try to make it as easy as possible. A motion to amend Section 14-161, Sections C and G, refer to at least a 21-day prior for the expiration of the renewal of a current license.
So that's 14-161C.
C as well as G.
And 14-162G.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
And it would say,
Seconded.
To establish
To
an
establish-
annual license calendar.
At the recommendation of the city staff, because it might be a low-volume time, if there's ever a low-volume time that you can say September 1st. I'll defer to January 1st. I'm okay with that.
And Alderman Snorky, you seconded that?
Seconded.
Wonderful. Is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Veneziano.
Yes.
Bessesi.
yes.
Diastis.
Yes.
Sunoika.
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
Bud Matts.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
With 7 in favor and none opposed, that amendment does go through. Now, we're back on the original amendment with the 2 amendments that have been passed. And
The
do we
main
have to-
motion as amended 2 times.
The main motion is amended 2 times.
Right.
Thank you, that's a very concise way of saying it. Do we have to have discussion on this now, as it stands?
Yes.
Is there any discussion on this amendment as it stands with the main ordinance with the 2 amendments that have been made? Is there discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Bessesi.
Okay, I've been trying to get emails and letters and everything.
Roll, sir. Just please give me the
What?
yes or no. This discussion's over. It's vote time. I'm sorry.
You're tired of chickens.
No, it's just that we're at the vote now.
Yes.
Diastis.
No.
Sunoika.
Yes.
Cannon.
No.
Bud Matts.
No.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Veneziano.
Yes.
With 4 in favor and 3 opposed, this does make it to second reading. For those of you who are unconcerned with the remainder of tonight's evening, you are free to leave. We are not.
Thank you. See you in 2 weeks.
So, this now brings us on to new business, and it's a motion to approve payment of bills on warrant for 9/10/19. Is there a motion to approve the bills on warrant?
Motion.
Seconded.
Alderman Veneziano, Alderman Sonoyka, thank you so much. Is there any discussion on the bills on warrant? Seeing none, the question is, shall the warrant be approved? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Diastis.
Yes.
Sunoika.
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
Bud Matts.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Veneziano.
Yes.
Bessesi.
Yes.
With 7 in favor and none opposed, the warrant is approved. This brings us now to the next items, which are consent resolutions. It consists of 3 items, items E through G. Does any alderman wish to remove any item on the consent agenda for resolution? Alderman Budmats?
I'd like to remove F and G.
F and G. That now no longer makes it a consent resolution, correct? Because there was 3.
Technically, it's still a consent
1.
resolution, there's just no debate. That can, when anything's
Okay.
on a consent agenda, there's no debate.
So,
So-
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'll take off E, then I just want to ask a question. 1, it won't be about chickens.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So now, they've all been pulled.
Correct.
Okay, so we'll just go through these as planned here. So the first line item on the list, right, is item E, resolution number 19-R-95, and it's award a contract for the proposed 2019 Salt Creek Storm Sewer Outfall repairs. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Alderman Sonoyka. Is there a second? Thank you, Alderman Cannon. Alderman Cannon, you had made the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to ask a quick question. I apologize for not asking this earlier in the day. Mr. Horn, I was wondering if you could just update us, how many more years is it going to be before most or all of these are done? I just have no idea if we have a lot more to go or some more to go.
I knew that question was going to be asked.
All right.
But I don't have the answer. What I do know is we're nearing completion. The issue is now that the remaining outfalls that we have to work on are in remote locations or they're big fixes. So we may only be able to do 1 or 2 a year. The expectation is it will be done within the next 3 to 5 years completely.
So you expect us to add more to the budget to cover these then?
No, I think our program's correct. We just, as was indicated, some of the remote locations came in a little higher than expected, so.
Okay. Thank you for the answers.
Any further comments on this? Alderman Budman.
Seeing that it was pulled, I would say that the engineer's estimate was very low and disappointing that he wasn't more accurate in his assessment of what the cost would be. So I don't know what we can do about having our engineer pay closer attention.
Further comments, discussion? Seeing none, the question is, shall the resolution be adopted, and will the clerk please call the roll?
Sunoika.
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
Bud Matts.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Veneziano.
Yes.
Bessesi.
Yes.
Diastis.
Yes.
With 7 in favor and none opposed, this resolution is adopted. Moving on to line item F, resolution number 19-R-96, authorize a contract for design services relating to space assessments and conceptual designs of various office areas within city buildings, City Hall, Fire Station 16, and the Public Works Facilities, Birdnick and Central. Is there a motion to move this forward? So moved. Alderman O'Brien made, and Alderman Budmats, thank you for the second. Alderman Budmats, you had pulled this one, right? F and G? So
Yep.
F, you're first up.
Yep, thank you. So in reading the ordinance, it says 5 these 5 items at a total cost of $16,200, which to me is a misrepresentation. I read the bids. It looks like the total cost that they're actually quoting us is $88,700 without a cap, so it could easily go to up to $100,000. I'd like to know if other bids were received. I understand that it's a professional service, and so there was only one selected, but in the process of selecting this professional services, were there any others that gave you an idea of what they would charge for similar services? And I wanted to make sure that the council was well aware that in the documents, it says that Whitney owns this document license, and should we choose not to continue on using Whitney after the first stage of their design, our $16,200 is gone, as are our rights to use anything that they've given us. So we're wasting $16,200 unless we actually spend the rest of the $62,500 with Whitney. So we're not voting on $16,200, we're really voting on $88,700 plus expenses for everybody's knowledge. But if Rob, if you could tell us about the rest of the process.
Yeah, I was not aware of that clause, so that would not, I certainly would not be in favor of that. Once we paid for any conceptual drawings, we should own those. The other pricing that was provided, we did intentionally, so the council had an idea of what it may cost to develop construction drawings. The prices they put in there are very ballpark prices because they can't know the exact pricing mechanisms until they actually sit down with staff and look at all the things that would be done as part of the design. I asked that be put in there specifically for the council to understand what the concept drawings would result in if they did approve, if they were in favor of the concept drawings, that there would be additional actual construction documents that need to be developed to be, to bid out the work and those manage the construction project and those types of things. Those are not exact figures.
Director Horn, can you refresh my memory if we, as council, had requested a maximum spending allowance on this by any means? Would it be prudent for the council to request a GMP on any of this while we're in a preliminary phase, or gross maximum price, not to exceed a certain amount? So we don't get
to the best of, and I'm certainly fine with that. My expectation is that the ordinance is written to not exceed $16,200. That's all I have authority to spend, given the council's approval. So if that, thank you for identifying that clause. I would request that those clauses be stricken before we signed a proposal to approve those.
So what's the easiest way for that to happen, for the council to deny this as it stands and you go back to the contractor? Would that make it easiest? Path of least resistance?
I don't know if we can approve the resolution with the amendment that line be stricken from the proposals. I don't know if that's...
Or you could, the option also is to table this matter so that staff and legal counsel have time to make those revisions to the proposal, the fee proposal.
Okay, so Alderman Cannon?
If you had a question,
I was just going to ask Alderman Budmets if he would want to put in a motion to table this for a period of time for staff to do their due diligence on creating these safeguards?
Sure. Yeah, in light of the items shown in G, warranties and document license, I would ask that this item be tabled until such time as staff can come back to us with either that section stricken or something which provides us with ownership of the documents if we're paying $16,200 for them. So I'd make a move, table it for
2 weeks, I believe we heard. Is that sufficient time, 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Seconded.
Thank you, Alderman Sonoyka. Is there any discussion on this motion? Alderman Cannon.
Mr. Mayor, are we allowed to ask other questions about this document before we move on? Or if we vote on this, could we talk about it after then?
I mean, I believe we're free to we're on the subject, so if you have questions about it.
So I have a couple questions. A year ago, we had an interior design here that gave us preliminary plans for the council. I know they weren't approved, but it seems to me that we're repeating something we already did and turned down. So, I mean, I don't know why we would want to have another interior designer to come unless we decide as a group that we want to get the council chambers changed. Because it was voted down pretty strongly last time. And I guess the second part of that is, we had a discussion, and a number of us up here had major concerns that we did not want to sell, or did we not want to make Station 16 a storage facility. So until we decide one way or another on that, I really don't want to spend money on what storage we want to put in there until we decide as a group that that's where to keep that as a storage building. It just seems like we might be wasting money. I mean, I know we need to find out information now. If it's the things that we have inside 16 that we need to store somewhere else because it's the command post, I'm fine with that. But the building itself, until we decide that that's going to be the storage facility, I'm not really interested in spending money on it.
So I would pose the question to Director Horn in terms of, is there an opportunity for us to work with the contractor to omit Station 16 and then put in there an opportunity for a change order at some later point in time once the council has come to a conclusion on what we're doing with Station 16?
Yeah, that's why staff brought each proposal as a separate item, so the council could make that determination. I will say, just for the purpose of discussion, the reason I felt like maybe I was incorrect, I thought there was direction to have them do a space assessment need of what we currently have in storage, that if we were to not have the Public Works Central building available to us, what kind of storage needs would we be left with, and where would they go? So that's what that item was for. And then if I could just answer regarding the council chambers, one of the things that we talked about at council chambers that was one of the higher priorities in the design stage was some building hardening, which is more security related and safety related for staff and the public.
I understand your logic with both of those. Do you believe that staff has it within its capacity to maybe calculate what the storage needs would be for 16 independently of some outside agency doing that for us for this one building? Not the entire project, but just that one building.
I think we could do it, but again, I know...
Only if it's reasonable. I'm just putting the question out there.
Time-wise and it's not, it's really the expertise is... I don't know if we will be using it in the most efficient and best possible ways, but we certainly can look at what we have in this building and Public Works on Central Road to see how that would translate to Station 16 if that station was kept for a certain period of time.
And nobody would persecute anyone for the half of square foot or anything. But if you could get a rough estimate internally, that would be great, because then council could determine what's going on with Station 16, and staff could still continue moving the entire plan in some sort of progressive manner forward.
Yeah, we certainly could do that.
Alderman Cannon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I guess to go along with what we're saying, on the council chambers, our police chief had a lot of solid recommendations last time. So I would ask that he's included in any discussions about hardening this facility, because he had very distinct ideas that were rejected again. But I mean, I don't want a strange group coming in, no offense to them, to make recommendations then if we're not even going to consider them.
Sure.
So I just would ask that he get involved with all of this, because he had very firm ideas of what needed to be done.
Makes sense.
And he had experience in his last city.
Makes sense, and I would request that staff address that subject while it's in its 2-week limbo period here, as we're requesting that. Is there further comment? Alderman Veneziano.
So to go along with that, reading over the proposals, I didn't see anything in there about those measures that we're concerned about with security and safety that they would be addressing in any of the locations.
I understand that. I don't know much about building hardening. We have had the police chief and fire chief involved in those initial discussions. The idea was to have the architect consultant come in, meet with the staff in their space with the police chief available or the fire chief to discuss potential hardening that could be incorporated into the design change.
I would ask that would be included in the proposal, that those measures be included, because there's nothing in those proposals about the hardening of the buildings and safety.
So when it's 2-week hiatus, you'll put those into consideration. Further comments, discussion items? If Alderman
This might just be a
O'Brien.
point of clarification for my own, but it was also similar to what Alderman Budmats had. In each of the write-ups by facility at the bottom, because I thought 16.2 was too good to be true, at the bottom of each, it does show like overtime pay, travel time, any number we get back from them, that's just extraneous, correct? That's what was the one point of clarification I just wanted to ask, is we understand consulting fees if it's overtime, but we're not going to be charged 54 cents a mile for them to come from Oak Brook back to the city.
No, those-
Okay, that's just,
Yeah.
their price sets. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions, discussion? Seeing none, then the question is, will the clerk please call the roll on the vote to table this for 2 weeks?
Cannon.
Yes.
Budmats.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Veneziano.
Yes.
Bessesi.
Yes.
Diastis.
Yes.
Sunoika.
Yes.
With 7 in favor and unopposed, this is now tabled for 2 weeks. Final line item here, line item G for the consent resolutions. It's resolution number 19-R-97, and it's approved change order number 1 for the HVAC control system, phase 2 for City Hall. Is there a motion to move this resolution forward?
So moved.
Thank you, Alderman O'Brien. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Diastis. Alderman Budmats, you had pulled this one. Have at it, sir.
So I went and looked at the water heater, and I also looked at the new boilers that are preventing the old water heater from easily being extracted from its current space. And this is to offer the contractor who put the boilers in the space of the water heater the opportunity to replace that water heater now with 3 smaller boilers and water heaters, sorry. And so I have a hard time personally understanding why we're going to spend money with the contractor who didn't lay it out in a thoughtful way so that we could easily change our existing water heater with one of its current design. I would like to suggest that staff get us 3 bids for this, not just 1 bid. My understanding was there was only 1 bid received. I'd like to get 3 bids for this, both of the current style water heater and then the new proposed style water heaters, so that we can look at those and then make a decision how we want to spend our money to heat the water at City Hall. But it seems very excessive to spend $22,000 with a contractor that really didn't lay out the job nicely, so that we could just change what we already have with what we already have if we chose to.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second on his request?
Yes, you're second.
Alderman Cannon, thank you. Is there any discussion on this request? Alderman Cannon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
I guess to go along with what Mr. Budmats said, I'd just like to remind everybody up here that we've spent over $1 million now on heating and air conditioning in this building, and some of our employees are still unhappy with their heat and air conditioning. So, I mean, I think this contractor should be called out. $22,000 is not a lot of money, but we've spent a lot of money on this facility, and it's not working yet. So I appreciate Mr. Budmats bringing this up. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments? Seeing none, just to clarify, we are essentially postponing this change order.
Or we can vote no on this, and they can bring us 3 proposals, however you want to do it.
How would you like us to do it
I would
as
say,
council?
I'd like to postpone it until we can get competitive bids, and then that staff can come back to us. So I'm motion to postpone for competitive bids.
Okay.
Seconded.
So thank you.
Well, I think we've already had the
So-
motion. We were just clarifying that the motion was made and seconded, I think, already by Cannon, Alderman Cannon.
Yes, and in its
Okay.
essence, it would postpone any movement to address the change order or pay the change order, because we can't. We couldn't do it because we're going out for further bids, right?
So it's a change order, but we've only received 1 bid, right?
Correct.
The rest of the project is more or less completed. This is separate. This is a water heater for a HVAC project, right?
The reason it was brought at this time is because the contractor installing the boilers has delayed putting in the venting, which will run over the hot water heater, which is why we requested only their proposal, because they were on site and able to do it immediately and not delay the project. So what we will do is we will get the additional pricing, but the contractor will install the venting, and it will likely be 3 completely different contractors.
Okay. So is that
So no,
sufficient then?
Correct. And we'll be voting on the motion to postpone to get the 3 proposals.
Okay. So then Alderman Bud Matts, you have one more
Yeah, I have
comment.
a question. So who approved the layout drawings for where the venting is going to go? Because why are we putting venting in a place where it makes it impossible for us to replace our water heater?
I did not say it was impossible. I'm just saying that that's why we offered to have him do it now, because it was showing signs of wear. The hot water heater was showing signs of wear, and it was on its, I think I had the years wrong, but it was within 1 or 2 years of its replacement year. So again, that's the reason we delayed doing the venting. I'm not suggesting that it cannot be changed with the venting there. I think it will be easier to do without the venting there, but 12 years from now, the venting's going to be there, so it will have to be replaced as well. And that's why we were looking to do a tankless water heater option as opposed to a large tank heater.
And I know there's efficiencies with tankless water heaters, but is it because we painted ourselves in a corner, though, by the type of workmanship that's occurred to a certain degree?
It's my understanding that the boilers that were ordered are a different size, and as a result of the mechanical room being set as it is, we cannot be relocated. The equipment went in and actually created a larger footprint from the ones that were there previous. Again, I can't speak to what the contractor was doing. The contractor was hired to replace the boilers only, not all the equipment around it, so it's likely they didn't take into consideration anything outside the scope of their work.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Diastis, you had your hand up.
Just a clarification with our attorney. Postpone needs to have a date, correct? Tabled is for 2 weeks, but when you postpone something, you have to have a specific date?
It can either be indefinitely,
Okay.
or it could have a date.
Okay, I just wanted a clarification on that.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Veneziano, you had your hand raised as well.
Do you anticipate if we do not order the water heaters and they proceed with the venting, that it'll ultimately cost us more money to replace the water heaters if that venting is in place when they go to replace these water heaters?
That was a concern we discussed, but again, we didn't look at what that pricing was. Our goal was to get this on the council agenda as soon as possible, which is why, again, our staff developed the plan they thought was best. I trusted what they presented, and that's what we're here with. So I guess my short answer is, I think it may, but I cannot guarantee that.
Alderman Cannon.
Mr. Mayor, in light of the fact that this project's gone on for a couple of years, is it possible we could ask the contractor to hold off on the venting until we decide this issue in 2 weeks?
I was just thinking that, and the reason I was thinking that is because I remember sitting up here a couple of years ago, even a couple of months ago as well. I don't enjoy when the council's faced with change orders that come up almost after the fact, right? Where we're very limited in what our abilities are to change course or redirect with action. And I feel like we're in one of those same circumstances. And I know that timing can't help. We can't help that with timing because of the times council meets and the time when work needs to be done. But these instances cost the city and taxpayers money, and I do want to be very conscious of that and not see this occurring. So to Alderman Cannon's question, is that a possibility of them suspending their work for a moment in time?
We certainly could request that. Again, the one thing I would want to clarify with the council, just because it's been said a few times, this is a separate contract from any previous year's contract. So this contractor had nothing to do with the work that was done last year. He was simply we rebid the work that was being done this year. It was an entirely new contractor doing the work related to the boilers and the controlling system. So I just want to make sure we're aware that it's not the same contractor. So in light of your request, I certainly will talk to the contractor and see if they can refocus their attention somewhere else. The way it was described to me is that they're going to move one way or the other following whatever the council's decision is, but I can certainly talk to them.
So did one source install the boilers?
Yes.
Yes. And one source is the company that's giving us the bid for the water heater?
Correct, because they were on site, and that's why we did it as a change order as opposed to going out to bid because they're here and they're on site. So that's the only reason.
And is One Source the people who are doing the venting?
Correct, yes.
So then who's the different new contract, or who's the old contractor?
There's been reference to the fact that we've been working on this project for 2 years and over $1 million. The work that was done prior to 2019 was done under a separate contract by a separate contractor. I just wanted to make that clarification.
Okay, but
the work, yes.
Yeah, but the boilers and the venting.
Yes, sir.
And it's all the same contractor,
Yes,
One
you
Source.
are correct in that
Okay,
regard.
okay, thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on this, or can we go ahead and put it to a vote, which is to, yes, Ms. Wolf?
I just would like to make another point of clarification regarding the timing of this motion to postpone. Unless it's specifically stated that we're postponing this indefinitely, I believe that the city ordinance require that the postponed motion go to the next meeting, the postponed issue go to the next meeting. So that would be the timing, unless there's a specification that it's indefinite.
Which is essentially 2 weeks in
Correct.
time frame for staff to do their due diligence and work through this. Is council okay with the postpone the term? Because that gives 2 weeks, and the 2 weeks was the requested time that we had asked for staff to do due diligence.
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Sonoyka.
So this, I don't expect then to see this item come up again unless we have multiple bids, as was the motion that was seconded by Alderman Cannon, correct?
Yes, they're supposed to be taking this 2 week period of time to be collecting multiple bids. And then because the postpone without giving a date is 2 weeks, and Alderman Budmats had mentioned 2 weeks by my request when we asked to make the motion, that's where we stand. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Manager Crumstock, you look like you want to interject? No? Okay. Rob, Director Horn.
Yeah, I'm sorry. If
That's
I could
okay.
just, for clarification purposes, when we say multiple bids, it should, the terminology should be proposals. Bids are we have to send an advertisement out and do a public letting and things like that. I just want to make sure what you're seeking is a proposals from multiple companies.
Yes.
Okay.
Competitive proposals.
Competitive, okay, so it's not
Just-
competitive
just-
bids, competitive proposals?
Proposals,
Okay.
please. Thank you.
And we'll have that notated in our minutes. And with that, I would like for the clerk to call the roll.
Budmats.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Veneziano.
Yes.
Bessesi.
Yes.
Diastis.
Yes.
Sonoyka.
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
With 7 in favor and none opposed, this will be postponed for a period of 2 weeks because we did not deliver a date, and there will be up to 3 proposals returned at the time this makes it back to our dais. Moving along, that now brings us and the council to other business and reports. There are no mayor's appointments at this time, nor do I have any proclamations. Is there any city clerk reports?
No.
Thank you. That now moves us along to city staff reports. Community items of interest, Manager Crumstock.
Thank you, Mayor Gallo and City Council. This is non-controversial, no postponements. The first item that we actually have is big thanks to Meadows Christian Fellowship for conducting another great year for the Meadows Cruise Nights on Friday nights. We hope to see them next year. We do want to remind what the mayor did mention earlier, that please come to Kimball Hill by 6:30. The ducks start running down the waterfall, and then 7 o'clock is our last Friday Friday Rock, which is scheduled again for this September 13th. And again, the music is from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. in Kimball Hill Park, and the musical group is Billy Elton. And again, as we mentioned before, the 12th annual duck race is at 6:30. We start promptly. If you're looking for duck packs or duck quack packs, the last time that I can say that for this year, they're actually at the Park District. We do not have any more tickets here at City Hall, and it's $5 per duck, or the quack pack is 5 ducks for $20. And again, that's held over the bridge, the waterfall area right by Campbell Hill Park. Then we do want to mention that on the next day, which would be Saturday, September 14th, the Rolling Meadows Chamber of Commerce, Resources for Community Living, and the Stadium Sports Club and Pizza at 4015 Algonquin Road will be conducting Rolling the Cuisine food truck event. And again, it goes from noon to 8 p.m. in the parking lot at 4015 Algonquin Road. Obviously, the newest list of their food trucks come from Pierogi Squad, Kona Ice, Cook's Ice Cream, Twisted, Classic, Perkin Pickle, Go Doggy Run, Matt's Mobile Meats, Rothela's New Orleans Cuisine, and Arnold's Tacos was actually added since we met last time. And again, it should have the food trucks and restaurants that are in the area, Oktoberfest-style beer garden, family-friendly activities, and entertainment and music. The next bike ride is sponsored by the Environmental Committee, is scheduled for Saturday, September 28th, starting at 9 a.m. at Community Church, 2720 Kirchhoff Road. If you missed the Saturday, August 24th City Market, the last regular scheduled market for 2019 is set for Saturday, September 28th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the parking lot at Community Church, 2720 Kirchhoff Road. Special city market features for September include music by Cole Brandt and the Arlington Heights School of Rocks. There will be free caricatures. I think administration is doing it right by a she shed. New vendors, food and fun for the entire family, and actually from 10 to 11 a.m. The city council will be there doing a meet and greet. And then we do want to mention, obviously, that is still at the community church for that meet and greet. And then we do want to mention coming up on Saturday, October 5th, Public Works and Swink will be conducting an electronic and document destruction event at 9 a.m. to noon in the Public Works building located at 3900 Birdnick Street. You do need to be a Swink member. They do check to make sure that you're a member, that not just people driving up and doing electronics or document destruction. Also on Saturday, October 5th, the city, the Park District, and the Community Event Foundation will be conducting a hometown hoedown in Kimball Hill Park from noon to 5 p.m., and we will be having an update on the next meeting, September 24th on that one. And then finally, we do want to mention on Saturday, October 12th, the fire department will be conducting an open house from 10 a.m. to noon or 2 p.m. at the Newkirk's Fire Station at 2455 Plum Grove. There is one other item that I do want to mention, that tomorrow night, Reb's Place will be doing a fundraiser for the Children's Advocacy Center. That's actually a group that the city of Rolling Meadows participates. What they actually do is they actually serve children who have been from abusive homes or additional points. It says for Hanover Township, but they reach all the way into the county and to Cook itself, and it's another group that we actually have used. So again, if you're in the area, Reb's Place will be doing a fundraising for the Children's Advocacy, and they go from 11 a.m. to midnight. It would be greatly appreciated if you could participate in that. There is one other item that on matters not on the agenda. There will be someone else doing that, but we do have flyers in the back and also on the first floor. With that, that's items of interest with no controversy.
Thank you, Manager Crumstock. You were correct. There's no controversy there. Bringing up something that I wish more folks would pay attention to rather than chickens would be our 2020 proposed budget. Ms. Gallagher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Direct to you.
As a staff report, we are releasing the 2020 proposed budget. It is on the city's website under the Transparency tab, so you can find that when you go to the city's homepage at www.cityrm.org. And the 2020 proposed budget is at the city's library as well at 3110 Martin Lane. For council members, let us know if you need a paper copy. We're happy to print one. Also, just so you know, there is a reminder, the first city council discussion will take place next week, September 17th. And due to the timing for the property tax, we will be discussing the property tax proposal, also included in the budget. The property tax levy hearing will be held. The first one will take place actually September 24th. There was a typo in here. It should have said September 24th. And then the actual budget hearing will take place October 8th. Please note that we also do set up one-on-one meetings with the city manager and myself, and I'll start scheduling those with you. And right now, it's just a release of the budget planning calendar and the budget.
Wonderful, thank you. Because budgets and finances are important and fun, let's go ahead and continue this with the 2019 second quarter financial statements.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Within the council packet tonight is the second quarter financial statements, which does present information unaudited for financial results through the second quarter, which is June 30th, 2019. And so it does mostly focus on the general fund, our largest operating fund, and the utilities fund and the refuse fund. We do have in the packet itself income statement, very detailed look at the income statement for the general fund, an income statement for all funds, and then we have the transfers completed per the budget on all funds income statement, as I mentioned, and a cash and investments report. I did want to just focus on a few highlights for the report. All in for year-to-date revenues for the general fund, they're coming in at $17.5 million, or 52% of budget, and expenditures are coming in at $16.9 million, or 51.7%. We are actually tracking a little bit higher than our original budget at $626,000 to the positive. Really, it is due to our first installment of the property tax levy coming in, but we are tracking all of our other revenues and making sure that those are on track as well. And there's trendline information right now are showing that they are coming in per budget. Just as a reminder that the City Council did approve resolution to repay the fire station land received back from the bond proceeds, so those transfers were done. $1,060,000 for the local road fund and the same amount for building and land, so those were completed. That's also noted in the report. And just a couple other notes for utilities fund, that is on track. Just to note that it's a little bit higher on the revenue side because, of course, that is due to the bond proceeds coming in, and the capital expenditures are taking place per the bonds. The refuse fund, that is coming in on target, and a little bit expenditures are a little bit lower, but some of that does increase as we do pick up all the landscaping throughout the season. Just as a reminder on the cash and investment statement, you'll see that a little bit higher on the funds that do have bond proceeds, so that is the reason why. And then in the TIF number for the Gulf Road TIF, just as a reminder, that money that does sit in there as cash would be reimbursable back to the Gallagher TIF. So just as a reminder and a footnote. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you. From community items and budgets, finances, on to infrastructure. Kirchhoff Road completion report. Mr. Horn.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to prepare a brief memorandum for the council to review to explain the hurdles the contractor overcame during the construction. There was some what I would perceive as negative comments related to the construction work and the timing of it. But as we take into account all the different factors that the contractor went through, from a staff perspective, we're very happy with the contractor and the work they did. And as a matter of fact, they completed approximately a week and a half earlier than the IDOT completion date, even with the parades and the rain dates and all the other items that occurred. And wanted to make a point that the contractor did have the right to request extensions by the state, but they did not. And so we're appreciative of that.
Wonderful. Thank you for updating us with that. Circling back to Manager Crumstock and September 17th, Committee of the Whole, a draft agenda.
We will be back here next week. Obviously, we have 6 items that are scheduled at this point in time in the draft agenda. More detail about the 2020 budget, the G1 ordinance amendment discussion, tree lighting locations part 2, waiving of bids on lot 5 construction, billboards part 2, and then city code 2-53 sensor expulsion. Alderman Bud Matz has been gracious about moving this and letting us move it. So those are the 6 items that are drafted at this point in time to be on the committee of the whole meeting.
And then follow that up with the City Council draft agenda.
So September 24th, we will be back here, and we have to add to postponement section. But on the draft that we have before the City Council, we do have our public hearings for the library tax levy, the city tax levy, and those are part of state statute. Then we will be back talking the hen and outdoor hen shelter ordinance. That will be in for second reading. And then we will have, obviously, at this point in time, the draft for the authorized remote attendance to the city council meetings. That would be the first reading on that. Pay some bills. Obviously, Brookwood Sunset Sanitary Sewer Engineering Services, award contract for leak detection. That's what we do. award contract for manhole rehab. That's an annual item that everybody sees. We're starting to award contract for the 2020 street resurfacing engineering services, award contract for the 2020 street reconstruction engineering services, support extension for a 6B classification tax incentive for LC Mold that was recommended by the Economic Development Committee recently, authorize agreement with Community Consolidated School District 15 for the use of their facilities during emergency disasters. That's a renewal. We have not done that in some time. Approved purchase of the end of the year snow ice control rolled salt. Yes, we have to do that now. And then authorize Weber Drive Phase 1 engineering services. And then obviously the 2 postponements will be added to this overall. We'll have community items of interest like usual, the August 2019 new business list. We will also have an update on Hoedown. So be prepared for that staff meeting. But that is the draft that we are working on at this point in time.
Thank you, and thank you to all of you for your collective input on the staff reports. This moves us on now to matters not on the agenda. Are there matters not on the agenda from anyone on council this evening? Alderman Veneziano, and we'll go in order thereafter. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have one event that City Manager had mentioned. It's Pairing Up to Beat Lung Cancer. It's a 5K walk race. I'll be doing it with my family November 2nd. It's 100% of the profits of this partnership goes to Northwest Community Hospitals Foundation for lung cancer assistance for people diagnosed with lung cancer in our area. So if you're interested, there's flyers downstairs, I'm told, and in the back. And you can also register at runrace.net. And I will be walking the 1 mile with my little ones and the family. So come out and join us.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that. Alderman Bessetti, go ahead.
Yeah, just really brief. Yes, it's chickens. I want to just ask the members of my ward, residents of my ward, to please communicate to me how they feel on this topic. I've gotten very little feedback on it, and right now it's 50-50. So my vote will be based on the feedback that I get. And that's it.
Alderman Sonoyka, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
So looking at the consent resolutions for the draft agenda for our next city council meeting, there's quite a number of contracts, and although Manager Krumstock has stated that many of this is old hat, we are reviewing this without the old hat experience of being able to quickly and swiftly and easily work with these contractors. So please provide additional context as necessary to say like why we are awarding the contracts that we are to these specific contractors. If you have bids where we can compare multiple individuals, then that is mostly helpful for us to swiftly get through this process when it comes to us before City Council. That is all.
Thank you.
I think just for clarification, it's not typically it's the same contractor. It's that we do manholes every year, we do streets every year, so it's all continuous that we do that. So that's what I mean by these are the annual that you see. So.
Thank you. One thing I wanted to bring up matters not on the agenda. Last week, I was reached out to by a resident in the first ward off of Silent Brook in Quinton, and she had informed me, and I believe Alderman Ken, you may have heard of this as well, and it got me thinking and giving feedback to City Manager Krumstock. But her neighbor has security cameras as well as web cameras, but he points the web cameras out his second-story window or her window, their window, into the neighbor's windows, whether it's on the first floor or the second floor. So it's not just having cameras positioned to monitor the perimeter of their homes. They are directly pointing in windows on the second floor of a home, and there's no reason to ever point one camera in another, but unfortunately we don't have any sort of repercussion for this. There was a police report filed. Police did go out and actually informed the neighbor, the complainant, of additional cameras on the other side of this individual's home. And so what I'm doing now with Manager Krumstock is looking into any ordinance that might exist on a local or state level for aerial drones and camera rules or restrictions that apply when flying over private property and see if there's anything that we can utilize. But I would request that council members start thinking about this and see what we can do other than expedite variance for taller fences or allow temporary barriers or public shaming. I don't know, right? But there's no reason to have cameras pointed in another individual's home. So just something to share. Alderman Cannon.
Thank you for bringing it up, Mr. Mayor. I had a couple of items also. A few months ago, I thought as a group we made a request to get appraisals for properties that we would like to sell. I thought there was a 2-month time frame on that. I've heard or seen nothing on that. And I just would like an update on it, or it doesn't seem anything's on the next agenda item either, so I don't know where we're at on that.
I'm still waiting, because part of that request was for the local appraisers, and that's what's taking the time.
So they're just not responding?
They're not responding or extremely slow. That's my nice way of saying it. And I can go back to the appraisers that we've used in the past that do turn things quicker, but that was part of the direction to use local.
Well, I guess the recommendation I would make would be just widen the window a little bit then.
Okay.
And then the other item that I'd like to just bring up, Mr. Mayor, I've been following a couple of articles that I've read on a national basis about recycling. And I just found out last week that the largest recycling center in California closed. And the reason it closed is because the recycled items are so contaminated, they're having a hard time selling them. So the reason I bring it up, I was wondering if Public Works could reach out to the Flood Brothers, because they're our recycling company, to see if we, as a city, can start doing a better job of not contaminating the recycles we put in there. The number one item nationally that people get in recycling that doesn't belong in there is used diapers.
Wow.
That's pretty scary. But what happens, though, because the Chinese are no longer buying recycling items from us now. They were the number one source for about 2/3 of our recycles. They're really having a difficult time because the stuff isn't pure enough to sell to some of the American manufacturers. So I guess as a city, I'd like to try to keep our costs down. I think if we could educate our public better about what we put in the bin, maybe it would keep our cost in line and help the Flood Brothers sell the items on the open market. So maybe we could come up with a sticker system to put on each cart or something. I'm open for ideas. I guess I would just ask them. I don't necessarily need to have them come in here, but just ask them it would help them, but I think in the long run it would help us because we want to keep our costs under control with garbage and recycling.
I agree. I think that's a valid point and a good argument you bring up. I have seen residents actually throw their garbage bags inside the recycling, and I know that our city is infamous for if it's at the curb, they take it, right? Whether it's public works staff, which is phenomenal, but then our contracted outsourced services, they do it as well, and that's phenomenal. But is there any sort of opportunity to not take it if they're blatantly being disrespectful to the recycling program or not abiding by the rules?
Yeah, I mean, there's a variety of things that we can discuss. As part of the environmental committee, we do discuss this matter fairly often. Recycling costs have been a topic of conversation for about 6 months. And we discuss, our environmental committee, we prepared last year recycling brochures and information that educates people on those items, and we have a table at just about every community event. We handed those out. So again, we can look at other opportunities to market better recycling habits.
Thank you. So continuing education on behalf or for the residents, and maybe having our vendors come in and provide additional opportunities or options for us. If there aren't any further matters not on the agenda, then the next item is closed session, which is for personnel, 5 ILCS 120/2C1, the Illinois Opens Meetings Act. And there is a request to go into this, and it does require a roll call vote. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Cannon. Thank you, Alderman Sonoyga. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
O'Brien.
Yes.
Veneziano.
Yes.
Bessesi.
Yes.
Diastis.
Yes.
Sunoika.
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
Bud Matts.
No. Yes. Yes, I'm sorry.
With 6 in favor and 1 opposed, and
He wants to
jokingly with 7 in
He wants to
favor
talk about chickens some more.
and none opposed, we will now enter into closed session. The audience and press are advised that we do not anticipate taking any action upon returning to open session. Have a good evening, folks.